Hi friends, thanks for joining me back again for this next session on FRTB Default Risk Charge. So this session is simple. I wanted to talk about the tale of two maturity rules for securitizations in FRTB Default Risk Charge, a non-correlation trading portfolio. And so yes, why do I say there are two maturities? It's not like there are two maturities in default risk charge for securitization. There is only one remaining maturity, okay, which is the remaining maturity of the tranche in which the broker dealer has invested, okay. But there is a different point here, okay, that I wanted to show you here. So there are two things, okay. If you remember in my one previous session, I stated that if that so this is applicable for all securities in your default trading book, okay, for which default risk charge is applicable. For example, for non-securitizations, if the maturity of your security is less than 1 year, then it has to be scaled, okay. The exposure, the gross jump to default exposure, it has to be scaled, okay. If it is like 0.5, if it is like 6 months, okay, then the gross jump to default, it has to be halved, okay, multiplied by 6 by 12, okay, halved. And if it is like 25 months, then the gross JTD has to be quartered, okay, multiplied by 1 by 4. So yes, why do we do that? Okay, why do we scale the exposure for the maturity, remaining maturity? Because we default risk charge is less if the your remaining maturity is less, okay. So the same applies to equities, although for equities they apply a scaling factor of 0.25 years, okay, but it has to be consistent for equity, which I discussed in one of my previous articles, okay. Across the trading book, the treatment for equities has to be consistent, either 0.25 year or 1 year, okay. The main point is that, yeah, so I discussed now the importance of that scaling factor of your gross jump to default in the default risk charge, and it is floored at 0.25, okay. Yeah, I mean 3 months, okay, and the maximum value is 1 year, okay. It's not like if the security maturity is like 5 years, then you have to multiply your gross JTD by 5 years. It does not work like that. It will still, the scaling factor will be 1, okay, because it is capped at 1, okay, simple. No more additional scaling over 1 year, okay, and no more less scaling less than 0.25 years, okay. So that's the main point. And so what is the other maturity that I'm talking about, okay? In the DRC framework. So I wanted to show you one thing, okay. So whatever I was telling you about that scaling, okay, it is discussed here. It is for securitization jump to default, non-correlation trading portfolio. Okay, this is what I was telling you about, okay. Now let's go into the next part, okay, where the maturity, remaining maturity is important, okay. This is the next part, okay. It is MAR 22, okay, which is the main text for a default risk charge. And the main point is that, if you remember from my previous article, that risk weights are important, right? When you calculate the final DRC capital, you multiply risk weighted by the net jump to default exposure. Then you need risk weights, and risk weights are easily available for non-securitizations, okay. It is in the same article, okay, but securitizations risk weights are not in this MAR 22. For that you need to rely on the banking book machinery, banking book. So you need to know a little bit of banking book risk weight calculations as well, okay, which are in these CRE articles, okay, CRE 40 to CRE 44 articles, okay. And now one important thing is that if you go here, external, you will see that maturity is important. In the risk weights, maturity is important, okay. Why won't it be, okay? Why won't it be? Because everyone knows that a 5-year security has definitely more risk than 1 year security, right? So I would think that, okay, less risk weight for my 1 year tranche, okay, rather than a tranche maturity in 5 years, okay. That's what I would assume, but it does not work like that in DRC. I would still choose this 1 year column, okay, this 1 year column, okay, and here also 1 year column. Why? Because if you see this very Very good statement here, okay, that 1 year maturity is assumed. Okay, why it is assumed? Okay, because we are measuring default risk charge. Default risk charge, not credit migration risk charge, okay, which is very applicable at longer maturities. Okay, so the mandate for DRC is simple. Okay, what capital should I keep for default which can happen in next 1 year? Okay, that's why the talk about 1 year, right? 1 year maturity is assumed. Okay, so I will choose this 1 year column. Okay, 1 year column. Okay, it also applicable for, so this was ERB. Okay, CRE 42 is for ERB. Okay, it is interesting that it's not applicable in the US. Just a small trivia. It is applicable in Europe, UK. Okay, now I move on to the next point. Okay, you see this is the next article, CRE 44. It is a default IRB approach, a banking book approach for calculating risk weights in the US. And also in Europe and UK. Okay, so this is the most okay prevalent method. Okay, if so this requires a broker dealer to have to be the originator. Okay, and it should also have good visibility into all the securitizations, all the uh, all the loans, and what is the loss given default of the loans, and many other factors. Okay, due diligence and many other things. You see the maturity is also applicable here. Weighted maturity if your securitization tranche is applicable, but it is again it is one only. Okay, it's not like you see it as a very good calculation here. Okay, it is like a weighted maturity only, but it's one again. So yes, the point is, okay, what is the DRC at 1 year, nothing more than that. Okay, that's why it is 1 year. Okay, so so maturity plays two roles in the securitization framework for DRC. Okay, which I explained you right now. Let me go through this the rest of the article. Okay, it is interesting article. So this 22.34, it tells you that maturity, you have to assume maturity equal to 1 year. Okay, why? It's a very good description here. Okay, and for 22, okay, the importance of scaling. Okay, why the scaling is floored at 0.25 and maximum is 1 year. Okay, so the main point is that, okay, then where is that extra risk going? Okay, I mean definitely a tranche that matures in 5 years, it definitely has extra risk. Okay, it goes into your sensitivities based method, SC, credit spread charge, capital requirement for the credit spread charge. Okay, it goes there. Okay, it stays there, and only DRC comes here. So so regulator Basel, it splits credit risk capital requirement into two major buckets. Okay, DRC capital, default risk capital, and your second major bucket, which is a migration risk charge. Okay, credit migration risk charge, which stays in a different bucket, which is a standardized based approach, credit spread charge. CSR. So there are two major buckets. Okay, the second bucket, the CSR bucket, it captures your migration risk, credit migration risk, not the default risk. Again, this is the major distinction. Okay, two components. Okay, so this is explained here. That is MAR 22. Okay, if you're looking into like credit spread, okay, migration risk charge, okay, credit spread movement charge, okay, it just stays here. Okay, and this MAR 22 is different, my friend, and this is I am explaining the scaling factor here for both securitization and non-securitization, including equity here. So that it is capped at like 1 year, and the floor is 3 months. It is in MAR 22. Okay, the text for a default risk charge. Okay, and okay, now it explains that why a longer duration tranche attracts a higher risk charge in sensitivities based method. Okay, the risk is higher, right? So that methodology stays in your MAR 21 sensitivities based method. Okay, definitely a higher duration, higher maturity tranche attracts higher capital. Okay, so that extra capital stays there. Okay, in DRC, and so not DRC's CSR, a sensitivities based method. Okay, and this next one, MAR 21, Yeah, it is talking about MAR20. Yeah, you're talking about CS01, right? Credit Sport 01, which is sensitivities for 1 basis point movement. Okay, and now so there is some non-linearity, because if there is some optionality involved in your tranche, then vega and curvature also can also come into picture. Okay, and this is showing that for the DRC, maturity plays a factor only if the remaining maturity is more than 1 year. Okay, if it is less than 1 year, up to 0.25 to 1 year, it doesn't only there it actually plays a major factor. If it is more than 1 year, it doesn't matter. Okay, uh, because of the maturity, there is a if it is more than 1 year, 1 year or 5 year or 6 years, if that is the only distinguishing feature between different securities of the same type, same asset class, then okay, DRC is same. So that's and the C, but the CSR, it is different, right? If you have a security which has like 5 year maturity, then CS01 5 year is very high. Okay, very high, and it will play a part, and the risk will be higher than a security which is like 1 year maturity, which have a major credit support 01 sensitivity point, tenor point at 1 year. Okay, so there CS01 will be much smaller for a 5 years maturity security. CS05 will dominate, and that's why the risk will be higher. Okay, because CS05 will be dominate much higher. Okay, so longer maturity securities have high CS01 or DV01 or PV01. Okay, for interest rate and credit spread, and so the same thing is there. Okay, you see that for DRC, okay, it does not increase. Okay, your DRC is not increasing with maturity. Okay, it plateaus after 1 year. Okay, there is no tenor before 3 year also. And for the CSR, so it is roughly, they are saying that it scales with the maturity. Okay, you see 3 written here, 3. It is a rough estimate. Okay, it's there are some correlation, intra-bucket correlations. Okay, so which can actually dampen or increase it based on correlation. But you see this 3 correlation. Okay, this approximation, they came from here. Okay, the CS01 actually, it has formula like this. Okay, if you do a rough estimation, if you don't, so this is a rough, it is approximation only, but you can see it increases directly. Okay, and it is not increasing. That's the main point. Okay, and yeah, so and now we talk about that like major points. Okay, now so that's all. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day. Bye.